I mentioned, like the policy framework, access to finance, the markets, support. You can Google them and you can see the 6 points, right? So I was making my comments around those 6 points. In essence, what we're saying is that if you want to assess how successful you've been, at least for us, we use that as a benchmark. And when we do so, let's start with the policy framework. For some time now, we've been advocating that there's a need to amend the Small Business Development Act. As you know, the last amendment was in 2006. This is 2024. And so it is not fit for purpose. And therefore, especially when it comes to the provision for approved small businesses, are we still going to maintain that? Do we think that there's a need now to change that, especially with the very low tax rate of 5.5%? These things will come out in the conversation, but there's a need for government to move with alacrity to amend the legislation. The legislation is outdated. The legislation doesn't really reflect a modern environment, a modern business environment. So that's the one point I made. We know that the 5.5% was introduced, and we laud that. Having that preferential rate for small businesses, we think is an incentive. To pay 5.5% on taxable income is definitely an incentive. However, how do you access it? You must be an approved small business, and therefore we've been, of the view that you need to revisit the conditionalities to become an approved small business. Okay, if you want to still have that carved out in the legislation, but then we have to modernize it, because one of the value-added features of that was the lower tax rate. But if the tax rate is 5.5% now, then what really is the incentive? And therefore, there's a need to review it. This is our position. And so, Small Business Week for us is an opportunity really to raise the conversation and the national dialogue around the sector. When you drill down, access to finance was another one. And yes, we've been seeing some improvement. We commend the trust funds. But beyond the trust fund and beyond seed capital, what else? You cannot just have a few agencies providing seed capital. You must have what we call a wider spread of financial solutions, financial options. And so, in 2019, when we had the State of the Sector, Marilyn and I sat down, the Stock Exchange, the SBA sat down, and we came up with a concept and a framework for how we can, introduce a junior market.